Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakacharya Sthira Jagatguru Saraswarupananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhajakacharya Sthira His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavendra Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganges Mai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's World Mission Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled Lords. All glories to the assembled Lords. All glories to the assembled
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the holy appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu Ki Jai. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premananda, Hari Bol. Namo Krishna Pristaya Bhutare Srimati Saraswarupananda Paramahamsitaname. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivase Sasanivani Pastatya Ishvara. Om Jnanatamārandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulunmilitam Jena Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaya Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When O Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet. Haribol Jai Srila Prabhupada. Haribol Namaste, Haribol Madri.
Haribol.
So, reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 8, Chapter 22. Bali Mahārāja surrenders his life. So as you may recall, against the advice of his spiritual master Sukracharya, Bali Mahārāja has granted Vamanadev 3 paces of land. With his first 2 steps, Vamanadev has covered the entire material universe, and he's asking Bali Mahārāja, what should he do with his 3rd step? Text 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead was superficially seen to have acted mischievously toward Bali Mahārāja, Bali Mahārāja was fixed in his determination. Considering himself not to have fulfilled his promise, he spoke as follows. Bali Mahārāja said, O best personality of Godhead, most worshipable of all the demigods, if you think that my promise has become false, I shall certainly rectify matters to make it truthful. I cannot allow my promise to be false. Please, therefore, place your 3rd lotus footstep on my head. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Bali Mahārāja could understand the pretense of Lord Vamanadev, who had taken the side of the demigods and come before him as a beggar. Although the Lord's purpose was to cheat him, Bali Mahārāja took pleasure in understanding how the Lord will cheat his devotee to glorify the devotee's position. It is said that God is good, and this is a fact. Whether he cheats or rewards, he is always good. Bali Mahārāja therefore addressed him as Uttama Shloka. Your lordship, he said, you are always praised with the best of selected verses. On behalf of the demigods, you disguised yourself to cheat me, saying that you wanted only 3 paces of land. But later, you extended your body to such an extent that with 2 footsteps, you covered the entire universe. Because you are working on behalf of your devotees, who do not regard this as cheating. You do not regard this as cheating. Never mind. I cannot be considered a devotee. Nonetheless, because you are the husband of the goddess of fortune, you have come to me to beg. I must satisfy you to the best of my ability. So please, do not think that I wanted to cheat you. I must fulfill my promise. I still have one possession, my body. You have taken my wealth, but I still have my body. When I place my body for your satisfaction, please put your 3rd step on my head. Since the Lord had covered the entire universe with 2 steps, one might ask how Bali Mahārāja's head could be sufficient for his 3rd step. Bali Mahārāja, however, thought that the possessor of wealth must be greater than the possession. Therefore, although the Lord had taken all his possessions, the head of Bali Mahārāja, the possessor, would provide adequate place for the Lord's 3rd step. It's a nice point that the possessor is more important than the possessions. Materialistically minded people have a tendency to measure their value, their worth, their position according to their possessions. But Bali Mahārāja, being a transcendental devotee of Krishna, understood the real nature of things, and that all material possessions are, practically speaking, useless. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that this Prakriti is the inferior energy of the Lord. And it's inferior to the Jiva Atma, it's inferior to the Paramatma, it's inferior to the Vishnu Tattva. And therefore, it's dead matter. It has no intrinsic value. The only value it has is in relationship to Krishna, who is its actual possessor. And so Bali Mahārāja is saying, yes, you've taken all the land, but it was already yours anyway. But I still have my body. You've given me this body until I still have it. Therefore, it is still within my possession. Therefore, I can still offer it to you. It was a very intelligent understanding of Bali Mahārāja. Text 3. I do not fear being deprived of all my possessions, living in hellish life, being arrested for poverty by the ropes of Varuna, or being punished by you as much as I fear defamation. Purport. Although Bali Mahārāja fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not tolerate being defamed for cheating a Brahmin brahmachari. Being quite alert in regard to his reputation, he thought deeply about how to prevent being defamed. The Lord, therefore, gave him the good counsel to prevent defamation by offering his head. A Vaishnava does not fear any punishment. Narayan para sarve na katashna bidhate. Bhagavatam 6:17-28. So this kind of brings to mind that verse in the Bhagavatam. I think it's in the first canto, second chapter. where Sutta Goswami is explaining that for the truthful devotee, all that is, and who studies the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed. And so Mahārāja is making the point that truthfulness is so important in the life of a devotee. One of the four defects of the conditioned living entity is to cheat. We all have this cheating propensity in this conditional life. When you have a material body, it kind of comes with it as part of the three modes of nature. And unfortunately, we take this cheating tendency, and if we're not careful, it'll try to contaminate our endeavors to get closer to Krishna. Trying to present ourselves as being a devotee when in fact we're still seeking our real pleasure, our real happiness in matter. So therefore it's very important that a devotee cultivate this honesty and try to be very honest, especially with himself. Not thinking that he can trick Krishna and trick the spiritual master and fool them into thinking that he's more advanced than he is. Text 4. Although a father, mother, brother, or friend may sometimes punish one as a well-wisher, they never punish their subordinate like this. But because you are the most worshipable Lord, I regard the punishment you have given me as most exalted. Purport. Punishment meted out by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is accepted by the devotee as the greatest mercy. Tate upanam samanakashmano bunjana evatam kritam vikapam hridvaga vipanur vidham namaste jivatva yo muktipade tadakyabhak. One who seeks your compassion and thus tolerates all kinds of adverse conditions due to the karma of his past deeds, who engages always in your devotional service with his mind, words, and body, and who always offers obeisances to you, is certainly a bona fide candidate for liberation. Bhagavatam 10:14-8. A devotee knows that so-called punishment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only his favor to correct his devotee and bring him to the right path. Therefore, the punishment awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be compared even to the greatest benefit awarded by one's material father, mother, brother, or friend. And of course, being the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the same applies to the chastisement of the spiritual master for his disciple. The disciple sees the chastisement meted out by his spiritual master as his greatest mercy, trying to keep him on the path to come back to becoming a pure lover of Krishna. Text 5. Since your lordship is indirectly the greatest well-wisher of us demons, you act for our best welfare by posing as if our enemy. Because demons like us always aspire for a position of false prestige, by chastising us, you give us the eyes by which to see the right path. Purport. Bali Mahārāja considered the Supreme Personality of Godhead a better friend to the demons than the demigods. In the material world, one who gets material possessions, the more he becomes blind to spiritual life. Sorry, I misread that. In the material world, the more one gets material possessions, the more he becomes blind to spiritual life. The demigods are devotees of the Lord for the sake of material possessions. But although the demons apparently do not have the Supreme Personality of Godhead on their side, he always acts as their well-wisher by depriving them of their positions of false prestige. By false prestige, one is misguided, so the Supreme Lord takes away their position of false prestige as a special favor. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that one must always be hearing from him. It says, if you're not hearing from me, you're going to be misdirected. Who are you going to be misdirected by? You're going to be misdirected by your mind. You're going to be misdirected by the false ego. You're going to be misdirected by the contaminated intelligence. You're going to be misdirected by materialistic associates, so-called friends and family and society. So many ways they may be misdirected in this material world. So one therefore has to be constantly hearing from Krishna and his representative. Otherwise, he's going to be, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that even one of the senses upon which the mind contemplates can take the devotee off the path. So as the special favor, the Supreme Lord takes away our position of false prestige, whatever that be. We all have our little trinkets that we try to adorn ourselves with to make ourselves more attractive than we actually think we are. Text 7. Many demons who were continuously inimical toward you finally achieved the perfection of great mystic yogis. Your lordship can perform one work to serve many purposes, and consequently, although you have punished me in many ways, I do not feel ashamed of having been arrested by the ropes of Varuna, nor do I feel aggrieved. Purport. Bali Mahārāja appreciated the Lord's mercy not only upon him, but upon many other demons. Because this mercy is liberally distributed, the Supreme Lord is called all-merciful. Bali Mahārāja was indeed a fully surrendered devotee, but even some demons, who are not at all devotees, but merely enemies of the Lord, attain the same exalted position achieved by many mystic yogis. Thus, Bali Mahārāja could understand that the Lord had some hidden purpose in punishing him. Consequently, he was neither unhappy nor ashamed because of the awkward position in which he had been put by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so who can think of another situation where demons attained an exalted position by being punished by Krishna directly?
Whenever Krishna kills them.
Like in the Battle of Kurukshetra, like in the battles of defending Dwarka, right? All these demoniac personalities had everything stripped away, and they attained liberation by having been killed directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 8. My grandfather Prahlāda Mahārāja is famous, being recognized by all your devotees. Although harassed in many ways by his father, Hiranyakashipu, he still remained faithful, taking shelter at your lotus feet. Purport. A pure devotee like Prahlāda Mahārāja, although harassed circumstantially in many ways, never gives up the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of anyone else. A pure devotee never complains against the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A vivid example is Prahlāda Mahārāja. Examining the life of Prahlāda Mahārāja, we can see how severely he was harassed by his own father, Hiranyakashipu. Yet he did not divert his attention from the Lord, even to the smallest extent. Bali Mahārāja, following in the footsteps of his grandfather, Prahlāda Mahārāja, remained fixed in his devotion to the Lord, despite the Lord's having punished him. We see so many instances in history where neophyte devotees pledge their allegiance to God. They may go to church every Sunday, they do this, they do that, they make donations to the church. But when Krishna does something that goes against their desires, their will, they often become angry and denounce the Lord. They either become angry at him or they decide he doesn't exist after all, and what's the point of worshiping him if he's not going to take care of you, if he's not going to be your order supplier and your servant. So this is the lowest stage of devotional service. It's not a stable position. One's easily distracted off the path in that lower consciousness. So we have to strive to develop this pure devotional service where we actually understand Krishna as he is. He's our ever well-wisher. Everything he does is for our benefit, even if we have a hard time appreciating it due to our conditioned state of consciousness. Text 9. What is the use of the material body, which automatically leaves its owner at the end of life? And what is the use of all one's family members, who are actually plunderers, taking away money that is useful for the service of the Lord in spiritual opulence? What is the use of a wife? She is only the source of increasing material conditions. And what is the use of family, home, country, and community? Attachment for them merely wastes the valuable energy of one's lifetime. Report. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna advises, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamikam Saranam Vraja. Give up all other varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. The common man does not appreciate such a statement by the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he thinks that during his lifetime, his family, society, country, body, and relatives are everything. Why should one give up anything and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? But from the behavior of great personalities like Prahlāda Mahārāja and Bali Mahārāja, we understand that surrendering to the Lord is the right action for the intelligent person. Prahlāda Mahārāja took shelter of Vishnu against the will of his father. Similarly, Bali Mahārāja took shelter of Vamanadeva against the will of his spiritual master, Sukracharya, and all leading demons. People may be surprised that devotees like Prahlāda Mahārāja and Bali Mahārāja could seek shelter of the side of the enemy, giving up the natural affinity for family, hearth, and home. In this connection, Bali Mahārāja explains that the body, which is the center of all material activities, is also a foreign element. Even though we may want to keep the body fit and helpful to our activities, the body cannot continue eternally. Although I am the soul, which is eternal, after using the body for some time, I have to accept another body. Tata dehantara prapti, according to the laws of nature, unless I render some service with the body for advancement in devotional service. One should not use the body for any other purpose. One must know that if he uses the body for any other purpose, he is simply wasting time. For as soon as the time is ripe, the soul will automatically leave the body. We are very interested in society, friendship, and love, but today, those in the garb of friends and relatives merely plunder the hard-earned money of the bewildered soul. Everyone is affectionate toward his wife and is attached to her, but with the wife is called Stri, which means one who expands the material condition. If a person lives without a wife, his material conditions are less extensive. As soon as one marries and is connected with a wife, his material necessities increase. Pumsha striya mihoni bhavam itam tayor mito hridaya grante mahu ato griha kshetrastupata vita janasya moho yam aham mamete. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. It's worth hearing again, right? The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and the female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusion and thinks in terms of I and mine. Bhāgavatam 5.5.8. Human life is meant for self-realization, not for increasing unwanted things. Actually, a wife increases unwanted things. One's lifetime, one's home, and everything one has, if not properly used in the service of the Lord, are all sources of material conditions of perpetual suffering under the threefold miseries, Adhyatmika, Adhibodhika, and Adhidaivika. Unfortunately, there is no institution in human society for education on this subject. People are kept in the darkness about the goal of life. Thus, there is a continuous struggle for existence. We speak of survival of the fittest, but no one survives, for no one is free under material conditions. But Krishna is so amazing and so perfect that he's made the material world so complete that even all of these things that have the tendency to perpetually bind us into the material world can also be used to free us. One can dovetail that attachment one has for one's wife or husband or children or friends or family or society, community, nation, offered in Krishna's service, and use that as a way to cement and develop his relationship with Krishna. How is this? We have a tendency to be very self-centered. Right? What is the saying? We always look out for number one. And who's number one? It's usually not Krishna. It's usually not our spiritual master. It's usually the false ego. Thinking of myself and my body and my extended body. But if one takes that attraction one has for one's wife and family and community and nation and dovetails it in service, appreciating that Krishna is pleased when we help others become his devotees, and use this life to somehow or another help those people make some advancement in their spiritual life, however small it may be, then that potential source of continuous bondage can become our source of liberation. It starts us on that path of getting outside of ourselves, thinking of someone beside just ourselves. And this is the nature of devotee. This is the nature of love. Nature of love is trying to give to others, not to get for ourselves. So all of these things that can bind us to the material world can also be a path of liberation if simply applied correctly in Bhakti Yoga. Text 10. My grandfather, the best of all men, who achieved unlimited knowledge and was worshipable by it for everyone, was afraid of the common man in this world. Being fully convinced of the sustainability afforded by shelter at your lotus feet, he took shelter of your lotus feet against the will of his father and demoniac friends, who were killed by your own self. Only by providence have I been forcibly brought under your lotus feet and deprived of all my opulence. Because of the illusion created by temporary opulence, people in general who live under material conditions, facing accidental death at every moment, do not understand that this life is temporary. Only by providence have I been saved from that condition. Purport. Bali Mahārāja appreciated the actions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although all the members of the demonic families, except Prahlad Mahārāja and Bali Mahārāja, considered Vishnu their eternal traditional enemy. As described by Bali Mahārāja, Lord Vishnu was actually not the enemy of the family, but the best friend of the family. The principle of this friendship has already been stated. Yashaham anugrahami harishetad aharamshnahi. The Lord bestows special favor upon his devotee by taking away all his material opulences. Bali Mahārāja appreciated this behavior by the Lord. Therefore he said, Vaivena nitai prashaham tajastri. It is to bring me to the right platform of eternal life that you have put me into these circumstances. Actually, everyone should fear the so-called society, friendship, and love for which he works so hard day and night. As indicated by Bali Mahārāja, by the words Jana Pita, every devotee in Krishna consciousness should always be afraid of the common man engaged in pursuing material prosperity. Such a person is described as pramata, a madman, chasing the will of the wisp. Such men do not know that after a hard struggle for life, one must change his body with no certainty of what kind of body he will receive next. Those who are completely established in Krishna conscious philosophy and who therefore understand the aim of life will never take to the activities of the materialistic dog race. But if a sincere devotee somehow falls down, the Lord corrects him and saves him from gliding down to the darkest region of hellish life. Adanta Gobir Vishtam Tashmeram Puna Panas Chavita Charavanam. Bhāgavatam 7:5-30. The materialistic way of life is nothing but the repeated chewing of that which has already been chewed. Although there is no profit in such a life, people are enamored of it because of uncontrolled senses. Nunam pratmanat krute vikarma. Because of uncontrolled senses, people fully engage in sinful activities by which they get a body full of suffering. Bali Mahārāja appreciated how the Lord had saved him from such a bewildered life of ignorance. He therefore said that his intelligence had been stunned. Stabda matir na bhuyate. He could not understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead favors his devotees by forcibly stopping their materialistic activities. Text 12. Sukadeva Goswami said, O best of the Kurus, while Bali Mahārāja was describing his fortunate position in this way, the most dear devotee of the Lord, Prahlāda Mahārāja appeared there like the moon rising in the nighttime. Then Bali Mahārāja saw his grandfather. Then Bali Mahārāja saw his grandfather Prahlāda Mahārāja, the most fortunate personality, whose dark body resembled black ointment for the eyes. His tall, elegant figure was dressed in yellow garments. He had long arms, and his beautiful eyes were like the petals of a lotus. He was very dear and pleasing to everyone. Being bound by the ropes of Varuna, Bali Mahārāja could not offer befitting respect to Prahlāda Mahārāja as he had before. Rather, he simply offered respectful obeisances with his head, his eyes being inundated with tears, and his face lowered in shame. Purport. Since Bali Mahārāja had been arrested by Lord Vamanadev, he was certainly to be considered an offender. Bali Mahārāja seriously felt that he was an offender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Certainly, Prahlāda Mahārāja would not like this. Therefore, Bali Mahārāja was ashamed and hung his head. Oh, the nature of the devotee is so sweet. Here's Bali Mahārāja. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's gone against the orders of his spiritual master to be pleasing to Vamanadev. He's willingly given up everything, all his possessions, to the Vamanadev. When the Vamanadev took everything with 2 steps and said, "Where do I put my third?" he offered his body as a place to put them. His head, his most sacred thing. And yet, he still feels humble. When in the presence of Prahlāda Mahārāja, he bows his head. Tears are flowing from his eyes because he feels ashamed that he's somehow been offensive to Krishna. And he knows that this is not going to be pleasing to his grandfather, Prahlāda Mahārāja. This is his concern. Not that everything's been taken away from him, not that he's going to be put down to the hellish planets, not that his spiritual master has cursed him. His concern is that I've displeased my grandfather, who's a pure devotee of Krishna. Text 15. When the great personality Prahlāda Mahārāja saw that the Supreme Lord was sitting there, surrounded and worshipped by his intimate associates like Sunandana, he was overwhelmed with tears of jubilation. Approaching the Lord and falling to the ground, he offered obeisances to the Lord with his head. Prahlāda Mahārāja said, "My Lord, it is your lordship who gave this Bali the very great opulence of the post of a heavenly king, and now today it is you who have taken it all away. I think you have acted with equal beauty in both ways. Because his exalted position as King of Heaven was putting him in the darkness of ignorance, you have done him a very merciful favor by taking away all his opulence." Purport. As it is said, "Yasyaham anugahami harishitat at devantanashnahi." Bhāgavatam 10:88-8. It is by the mercy of the Lord that one gets all material opulence. But if such material opulence causes one to become puffed up and forget the process of self-realization, the Lord certainly takes all the opulence away. The Lord bestows mercy upon his devotee by helping him find his constitutional position. For that purpose, the Lord is always ready to help the devotee in every way. But material opulence is sometimes dangerous because it diverts one's attention to false prestige by giving one the impression that he is the owner and master of everything he surveys, although actually this is not the fact. To protect the devotee from such a misunderstanding, the Lord, showing special mercy, sometimes takes away his material possessions. Yashyaham anugarhami harishe tad danam sanai. Text 17. Material opulence is so bewildering that it makes even a learned, self-controlled man forget to search for the goal of self-realization. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, the Lord of the universe, can see everything by his will. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Purport. The words, Ko vichati gatim atmano yata, indicate that when a person is puffed up by false prestige of possessing material opulence, he certainly neglects the goal of self-realization. This is the position of the modern world. Because of so-called scientific improvements in material opulence, people have entirely given up the path of self-realization. Practically no one is interested in God, one's relationship with God, or how one should act. Modern men have altogether forgotten such questions because they are mad for material possessions. If this kind of civilization continues, the time will soon come when the Supreme Personality of Godhead will take away all the material opulences. Then people will come to their senses. Text 18. Sukadeva Goswami continued, O King Parikshit, Lord Brahma then began to speak to the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the hearing of Prahlad Mahārāja, who stood nearby with folded hands. But Bali Mahārāja's chaste wife, afraid and aggrieved at seeing her husband arrested, immediately offered obeisances to Lord Vamanadev, Upendra. She folded her hands and spoke as follows. Purport. Although Lord Brahma was speaking, he had to stop for a while because Bali Mahārāja's wife, Vindhyavali, who was very agitated and afraid, wanted to say something. 20. Srimati Vindhyavali said, O my Lord, you have created the entire universe for the enjoyment of your personal pastimes. But foolish, unintelligent men have claimed proprietorship for material enjoyment. Certainly they are shameless agnostics. Falsely claiming proprietorship, they think that they can give charity and enjoy. In such a condition, what good can they do for you, who are the independent creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this universe? Purport. Bali Mahārāja's wife, who was most intelligent, supported the arrest of her husband and accused him of having no intelligence because he had claimed proprietorship of the property of the Lord. Such a claim is a sign of demoniac life. Although the demigods, officials appointed by the Lord for engagement and for management, are attached to materialistic enjoyment, they never claim to be the proprietors of the universe, for they know that the actual proprietor of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the qualification of the demigods. But the demons, instead of accepting the exclusive proprietorship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, claim the property of the universe for themselves through demarcations of nationalism. This part is mine, and that part is yours, they say. This part I can give in charity, and this part I can keep for my enjoyment. These are all demoniac conceptions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 6:13. Idam adya maya labham imam prapayashe manaham. Thus far, I have acquired so much money and land. Now I have to add more and more. In this way, I shall be the greatest proprietor of everything. Who can compete with me? These are all demoniac conceptions. But Bali Mahārāja's wife accused Bali Mahārāja by saying that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead had arrested him, showing him extraordinary mercy, and although Bali Mahārāja was offering his body to the Supreme Lord for the Lord's third step, he was still in the darkness of ignorance. Actually, the body did not belong to him. Because of his long-standing demoniac mentality, he could not understand this. He thought that since he had been defamed for his inability to fulfill his promise of charity, and since the body belonged to him, he would free himself from defamation by offering his body. Actually, however, the body does not belong to anyone but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom the body is given. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshir Janar Tishtati Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani Yantarahani Mayaya. The Lord is situated in the core of everyone's heart, and according to the material desires of the living entity, the Lord offers a particular type of machine, the body, through the agency of material energy. The body actually does not belong to the living entity. It belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Under the circumstances, how could Bali Mahārāja claim that the body belonged to him? Thus, Vidyavali, Lord Bali Mahārāja's intelligent wife, prayed that her husband be released by the Lord's causeless mercy. Otherwise, Bali Mahārāja was nothing but a shameless demon, specifically described as Chaktya Hriyas Tahad Avakpatata Kratir Vada, a foolish person claiming proprietorship over the property of the Supreme Person. In the present age, Kali Yuga, the number of such shameless men who are agnostics, disbelieving in the existence of God, has increased. Trying to defy the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so-called scientists, philosophers, and politicians manufacture plans and schemes for the destruction of the world. They cannot do anything good for the world, and unfortunately, because of Kali Yuga, they have plunged the affairs of the world into mismanagement. Thus, there is a great need for the Krishna consciousness movement to benefit innocent people who are being carried away by propaganda of such demons. If the present status quo is allowed to continue, people will certainly suffer more and more under the leadership of these demoniac agnostics. Lord Brahma said, O well-wisher and master of all living entities, O worshipable deity of all the demigods, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, now this man has been sufficiently punished, for you have taken everything. Now you can release him. He does not deserve to be punished more. Purport. When Lord Brahma saw that Prahlad Mahārāja and Vidyavali had already approached the Lord to ask mercy for Bali Mahārāja, he joined them and recommended Bali Mahārāja's release on the grounds of worldly calculations. 22. Bali Mahārāja had already offered everything to your lordship. Without hesitation, he has offered his land, the planets, and whatever else he earned by his pious activities, including his own body. By offering even water, newly grown grass, or flower buds at your lotus feet, those who may know mental simplicity can achieve the most exalted position within the spiritual world. This Bali Mahārāja, without duplicity, has now offered everything in the three worlds. How then can he deserve to suffer from arrest? Again, this is the nice nature of devotees. They're always feeling compassion for the conditioned souls. All these guys are stepping up, pleading Bali Mahārāja's case to Vamanadev. You know, we see the same thing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sometimes Lord Chaitanya would, for some reason or another, would be chastising one of his devotees or one of his disciples, and all the other devotees would kind of band together and, you know, try to intervene for on the part of the devotee who was being chastised, and ask for the Lord for his causeless mercy and to forgive the devotee. This is real life. This is a life of love. This is a life that allows you to live in the spiritual world. We're not, your main concern is not about your so-called well-being. Your main concern is about other living entities and helping them in their relationship with Krishna. They're getting closer to Krishna. Because in that mentality, you're tasting that love of Krishna and you're wanting to pass it on. Because you're tasting it, you're wanting to give it to everyone else. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9:26, it is stated, Patram pushvam pam yo me bhaktya pachayanti taraham bhajati ahatam ashnami prapayanamaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind that if an unsophisticated person with devotion and without duplicity offers at the lotus feet of the Lord a little water, a flower, a fruit, or a leaf, the Lord accepts it. Then the devotee is promoted to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Brahma drew the Lord's attention to this subject and requested that he release Bali Mahārāja, who was suffering, being bound by the ropes of Varuna, and had already given everything, including the three worlds and whatever possessed. 24. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Lord Brahma, because of material opulence, a foolish person becomes dull-witted and mad. Thus, he has no respect for anyone within the three worlds and defies my authority. To such a person, I show special favor by first taking away all his possessions. Purport. A civilization that has become godless because of material advancement and opulence is extremely dangerous. Because of great opulence, a materialist becomes so proud that he has no regard for anyone and even refuses to accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The result of such a mentality is certainly very dangerous. To show special favor, the Lord sometimes makes an example of someone like Bali Mahārāja, who is now bereft of all his possessions. 25. While rotating in the cycle of birth and death again and again in the different species, because of his own fruitive activities, the dependent living entity, by good fortune, may happen to become a human being. This human birth is very rarely obtained. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is fully independent. Thus, it is not always a fact that a living entity's loss of all opulence is a sign of the Lord's mercy upon him. The Lord can act in any way he likes. He may act to take away one's opulence, or he may not. There are varieties of forms of life, and the Lord treats them according to the circumstances as he chooses. Generally, it is to be understood that the human form of life is one of great responsibility. Parusha praktishyos tatohi bhante prakishtani gunam karanam guna sarvasha sat asha yoni janashu. The living entity in material nature follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. For thus rotating many, many forms of life in the cycle of birth and death, the living being gets a chance for a human form. Therefore, every human being, especially one belonging to a civilized nation or culture, must be extremely responsible in his activities. He should not risk degradation in the next life, because the body will change. Tatta dehantara praptir. He should be extremely careful. To see to the proper use of life is the purpose of Krishna consciousness. The foolish living entity declares freedom from all control, but factually he is not free. He is fully under the control of material nature. He must therefore be most careful and responsible in the activities of his life. 26. If a human being is born in an aristocratic family or a higher status of life, if he performs wonderful activities, if he is youthful, if he has personal beauty, a good education, and good wealth, and if he is nonetheless not proud of his opulences, it is to be understood that he is especially favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Report. When in spite of possessing all these opulences, a person is not proud, this means that he is fully aware that all his opulences are due to the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He therefore engages all his possessions in the service of the Lord. A devotee knows very well that everything, even his body, belongs to the Supreme Lord. If one gives perfectly in such Krishna consciousness, it is to be understood that he is especially favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that one's being deprived of his wealth is not to be considered the special mercy of the Lord. If one continues in his opulent position, but does not become unnecessarily proud, falsely thinking that he is the proprietor of everything, this is the Lord's special mercy. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the special mercy of the Lord, right? It's a special mercy that he takes everything away. But even more special is that if he leaves you with the opulences, but spares you from becoming unnecessarily proud, thinking that you're the proprietor of everything, that's the Lord's special mercy. 27. And this was the case with Bali Mahārāja. He had conquered the whole kingdom of the demigods. He had the entire material world under his control. And yet, he welcomed the opportunity to offer it all to Vamanadeva. And when he was washing Lord Vamanadeva's feet before making the offering, he was feeling extreme jubilation at having that opportunity to make an offering. And this is the real special mercy of the Lord. That intelligence to perceive things as they actually are is there before the things get taken away. In other words, Krishna didn't have to take everything away in order for Bali Mahārāja to come to that point of surrender. That point of surrender before Krishna took everything away. 27. All aristocratic birth and other such opulences are impediments to advancement in devotional service because they are causes of false prestige and pride. These opulences never disturb a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Devotees like Dhruva Mahārāja, who was given unlimited material opulence, have the special mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Once, Kuvera wanted to give Dhruva Mahārāja a benediction, But although Dhruva Mahārāja could have asked him for any amount of material opulence, he instead begged Kuvera that he might continue his devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When a devotee is fixed in his devotional service, there's no need for the Lord to deprive him of his material opulences. The Supreme Personality of Godhead never takes away material opulences achieved because of devotional service, although he sometimes takes away opulences achieved by pious activities. He does this to make a devotee prideless or to put him in a better position in devotional service. If a special devotee is meant for preaching, but does not give up his family life or material opulences to take to the service of the Lord surely takes away his material opulences and establishes him in devotional service. Thus, the pure devotee becomes fully engaged in propagating Krishna consciousness. 28. Bali Mahārāja has become the most famous among the demons and non-believers, for in spite of being bereft of all material opulences, he is fixed in his devotional service. Purport. In verse, the words Siddham api nam muhayati are very important. A devotee is sometimes put into adversary while executing devotional service. In adversary, everyone laments and becomes aggrieved. In adversity, in adversity, everyone laments and becomes aggrieved. But by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a devotee, even in the worst condition, can understand that he is going through a severe examination by the Personality of Godhead. Bali Mahārāja passed all such examinations as explained in the following verses. 29 and 30. Although bereft of his riches, fallen from his original position, defeated and arrested by his enemies, rebuked and deserted by his relatives and friends, although suffering the pain of being bound, and although rebuked and cursed by his spiritual master, Bali Mahārāja, being fixed in his vow, did not give up his truthfulness. It was certainly with pretension that I spoke about religious principles, but he did not give up religious principles, for he is true to his word. Purport. Bali Mahārāja passed the severe test put before him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is further proof of the Lord's mercy toward his devotee. The Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes puts a devotee to severe tests that are almost unbearable. One could hardly even live under the conditions forced upon Bali Mahārāja. That Bali Mahārāja endured all these severe tests and austerities is the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord certainly appreciates the devotee's forbearance, and it is recorded for the future glorification of the devotee. This was not an ordinary test. As described in this verse, hardly anyone could survive such a test. But for the future glorification of Bali Mahārāja, one of the Mahājans, the Supreme Personality of Godhead not only tested him, but also gave him the strength to tolerate such adversity. The Lord is so kind to his devotee that when severely testing him, the Lord gives him the necessary strength to be tolerant and continue to remain a glorious devotee. As we saw also in the example of Haridas Thakur, when being beaten in the marketplaces, Jesus Christ, when going through the crucifixion. Text 31. The Lord continued, because of his great tolerance, I have given him a place not obtainable even by the demigods. He will become king of the heavenly planets during the period of the Manu known as Sarvani. Purport. This is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if the Lord takes away a devotee's material opulences, the Lord immediately offers him a position of which the demigods cannot even dream. There are many examples of this in the history of devotional service. One of them is the opulence of Sudama Vipra. Sudama Vipra suffered severe material scarcity, but he was not disturbed and did not deviate from devotional service. Thus, he was ultimately given an exalted position by the mercy of Lord Krishna. Here the word Mad Ashraya is very significant. Because the Lord wanted to give Bali Mahārāja the exalted position of Indra, the demigods might naturally have been envious of him and might have fought to disturb his position. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead assured Bali Mahārāja that he would always remain under the Lord's protection. Mad Ashraya. 32. Until Bali Mahārāja achieves the position of King of Heaven, he shall live on the planet Sutala, which was made by Vishvakarma according to my order. Because it is especially protected by me, it is free from mental and bodily miseries, fatigue, dizziness, defeat, and all other disturbances. Bali Mahārāja, you may now go live there peacefully. Purport. Vishvakarma is the engineer or architect for the palatial buildings in the heavenly planets. Therefore, since he was engaged to construct the residential quarters of Bali Mahārāja, the buildings and palaces on the planet Sutala must be at least equal to those in the heavenly planets. A further advantage of this place designated for Bali Mahārāja was that he would not be disturbed by any outward calamity. Moreover, he would not be disturbed by mental or bodily miseries. These are all extraordinary features of the planet Sutala, where Bali Mahārāja would live. In the Vedic literatures, we find descriptions of many different planets where there are many, many palaces, hundreds and thousands of times better than those of which we have experience on this planet Earth. When we speak of palaces, this naturally includes the idea of great cities and towns. Unfortunately, when modern scientists try to explore other planets, they see nothing but rocks and sand. Of course, they may go on their frivolous excursions, but the students of the Vedic literature will never believe them or give them any credit for exploring other planets. 33. O Bali Mahārāja, Indrasena, now you may go to the planet Sutala, which is desired even by the demigods. Live there peacefully, surrounded by your friends and relatives. All good fortune unto you. Purport. Bali Mahārāja was transferred from the heavenly planet to the planet Sutala, which is hundreds of times better than heaven, as indicated by the words Swargibi Pratatyam. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead deprives his devotee of material opulences, this does not mean that the Lord puts him into poverty. Rather, the Lord promotes him to a higher position. The Supreme Personality of Godhead did not ask Bali Mahārāja to separate from his family. Instead, the Lord allowed him to stay with his family members. Yanti bi Paravatadipita. Text 34. On the planet Sutala, not even the predominating deities of the other planets, what to speak of ordinary people, will be able to conquer you. As far as the demons are concerned, if they transgress your rule, my disk will kill them. O great hero, I shall always be with you and give you protection in all respects, along with your associates and paraphernalia. Moreover, you will always be able to see me there. Because you will see my supreme prowess, your materialistic ideas and anxieties that have arisen from association with demons and danavas will immediately be vanquished. Purport. The Lord assured Bali Mahārāja of all protection, and finally, the Lord assured him of protection from the effects of bad association with the demons.
Bali Mahārāja certainly became an exalted devotee, but he was somewhat anxious because his association was not purely devotional. The Supreme Personality of Godhead therefore assured him that his demoniac mentality would be annihilated. In other words, by the association of devotees, the demoniac mentality is vanquished. Satam prashangam mama virhai savido bhavanti hrit karna rashaya kata. Bhāgavatam 3:25-25. When a demon associates with devotees, engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he gradually becomes a pure devotee. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 22nd chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam entitled, Bali Mahārāja Surrenders His Life. Haribol. I have to do something at 1 o'clock, so we'll just chant for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
That's okay.
Thank
Okay. I didn't realize the chapter was going to take quite that long to finish. Otherwise, I'd like to have time at the end. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutam Shimate Saram Swarupananda Paramahamsa Ite Namane. Sunyavadi Vastatya Deshatare. Namaste Saraswati Namaste Hare
Haribo, namaste.
Bye.